Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting, this town hall, the landlords town hall to order now, 6:01. Again, Gary Johnson is going to go over a presentation of what we've come up with so far and what we've developed for this housing subcommittee. And it should take, I don't know, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then we'll go with public comment. So I'm going to hand it off to Gary.
Sure. Thanks everyone for coming. We're just going to go over fairly briefly how this program is proposed to work. It has been put together again by the Housing Subcommittee of Council. Council did make enacting a rental inspection program a priority this year. So the committee has been working on this for quite some time. Can everyone in the back hear me, by the way? Okay. So it has been a priority. Been working on it for the last 6 months or so. And of course, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to get some input from landlords, questions, comments, thoughts on what you think, get some initial response from what you think can be improved in any way. Again, yeah, I'll do a brief presentation. All questions and comments once we get to that point after I do my presentation should be directed to me. Council is really here more to listen. We also have Ed Carty here. He's the guy in the chair on the side there. He actually is the manager of BIU for Erie. The company runs the rental inspection program, or does the inspections for the city of Erie. So he's got a lot of experience in this. He can probably answer several things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to answer today. We're going to note all suggestions. Every comment made or suggestion made will be noted here by staff, and we're going to take that will go back to the subcommittee for consideration and discussion. Comments and questions after I'm done talking. Again, I'll try to be relatively brief, but anyone who signed up to speak, Katie here will call you up to give your presentation. We do ask that be kept to a maximum of three minutes. Hopefully that's enough time for you to make your case there. And then, of course, we'll reiterate, personal attacks will not be tolerated. We're trying to focus again on the program itself tonight. That's really what the purpose of the meeting is. So, getting into the program itself, the program it would require all non-owner occupied residential units to be registered annually, licensed, and inspected every 2 years. The purpose of the program, of course, is to promote the public health and safety. We do have quite a few rentals in town. I think it's 64% now are rentals. And so we're looking to get into those to make sure that they're up to basic life safety code requirements.
Can you hear me?
These are some common safety violations the fire department has had since 2009 over the years. These are the most common as reported by the fire chief. You'll see they're pretty basic things: smoke alarms, address numbers, windows, plumbing, electrical hazards. Again, nothing really terribly surprising there, but those are the basic types of violations that we've seen over the years. So by way of context, this isn't the first time that this has come up in the city. In 2006, the Early Intervention Plan, which studied all aspects of city government and operations, they said you really ought to look at a rental inspection program for the health and safety. 2009, the Planning Commission also recommended that, and it was later voted down by council in 2009. Some of you may remember that. The 2013 City Comprehensive Plan also recommends having a rental inspection registration program. And then just as by way of context, several area communities, boroughs, cities also have these types of programs in place. It's not really anything terribly crazy. Additional context, these are the places that we currently inspect, mainly done by the fire department. So we inspect all commercial occupancies. Any commercial operation now is inspected by the fire department. Boarding houses, nursing homes, bed and breakfast, etc. Those are all already inspected, mainly again by the fire department. And again, we don't systematically inspect rental housing. It really has to do only when there's specific complaints with rental properties. That's when we go in. Again, typically it's the fire department will go in to follow up. If there's a violation, they write them up. If there's not a violation, they'll just go on. So the structure would be somewhat performance-based. Okay, so we start out with an inspection every 2 years. If there is a particularly well-performing unit, which we expect most of ours, I think, may fall into this. If it does well, if it passes 2 inspections, then it goes to every 4 years inspections instead of every 2 years. So it's not an annual inspection; it's every other year. And if it's a good performing unit, then we'll go to every 4 years. The other part of it would also give the city, as part of the registration process, we would have a local, either whether it's the owner if they live within 40 miles, If they don't live within 40 miles, then there's to designate a manager or an agent who does live within 40 miles so that they can be available should an emergency arise or something like that. So it is a registration and inspection program, so there's two components to it. The city, my office would essentially be involved in registration and actual enforcement if it had to get to that point. And then we would contract a third-party agency as proposed. Again, this is all proposed. None of this is final. I do want to reiterate that. We would contract with a third-party inspection company, potentially BIU, which Ed is here to represent, would actually do the inspections and go into the units themselves. Okay. So again, registration would be done every year, would be done annually, to try to keep up with the units that we have. It would be informational, of course. It wouldn't have anything to do with the actual inspection. And this is what we require in the application. The registration fee is estimated about $38 a year per unit. Okay, that's what the rate would be, which is comparable to some other ones. Not delinquent on property tax, refuse, and stormwater fees. And again, as I indicated, provides the name of a local agent within 40 miles. That's pretty much what we're looking at. We're not looking for tenant names or anything like that, really just basic information. So the licensing part, the license would be issued upon completion of the satisfactory inspection. Okay. That's what would be every other year. It would license and certify the unit's been inspected and it appears to be in compliance with health and safety standards. Each license, again, would have a 2-year term, so I'm inspected every 2 years. But again, if it fails inspection, you get one re-inspection, so within 30 days. So if they find violations, they'll say, okay, we need to come back, get them rectified, we'll come back within 30 days. Once that's taken care of and it passes, then essentially what would happen is you get the license and you're good to go for 2 years. You do that twice, then it falls to every 4 years for inspections. But the registration will continue on an annual basis. This is a proposed summary. I don't expect to be able to write this down necessarily. This will be on our website, and I think it actually may already be on our website. But this is, again, there's nothing groundbreaking here. The one thing that would be new is carbon monoxide detectors. We don't currently require that. It's not the International Property Maintenance Code 2009 edition. That would be proposed to be added as a requirement. There's just one carbon monoxide detector in those units that have fuel burning appliances. Okay, if you don't have fuel burning appliances, of course you don't have to have a carbon monoxide detector. For those of you who have units in Sagertown, it's the same. It would be the same rule. All of these other ones, again, basic things, structural integrity, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, making sure the water heater works. Again, I know it's kind of small here, but this is just a summary of the items. There's nothing, but again, there's nothing groundbreaking, nothing outside of the IPMC other than the carbon monoxide requirement. Okay. And all of these rules are actually already in place in the property maintenance code anyway, so it's not like there's new rules being put down, it's just they'll be inspected to that, with a focus on health and safety, life safety. Okay? Exemptions, of course, owner-occupied units do not have to be included. Family-occupied units, so if it's a relative of the owner of the property, whether it's a parent, parent-in-law, siblings, adult children, those units would be exempt from the inspection and license and registration requirements. And of course, vacant units, and because they're not occupied. So that's really it. That's the extent of what we're looking to do here. This is what the committee has put together as a proposal to take to council at some point. So that's time for questions and comments. Again, it was pretty quick. Just wanted to put that out there for you. Again, if you have registered to speak, you would have registered at the desk to speak. Katie's will call you up to ask your questions and make your comments. We'll do our best to answer. If we can't answer tonight, we'll do make every effort to answer them as we can. We'll follow up at a later time. As I said, when the comments and questions to the program, please direct them to me, and I'll do my best to go from there. See if I can get them to answer. Maximum of 3 minutes per individual. Katie has 2 pieces of paper over here, one of them yellow, one of them red. When there's 30 seconds left, she'll hold up the yellow. And then when the time is up, she'll hold up the red. And if you could finish your thought that you're speaking about right then, that would be appreciated. So that's about 12 minutes. That was pretty quick. Katie will call you. We'll call you up as we go.
Bob, if you want to start.
I would appreciate that.
Good evening, Council. My name is Bob News. I'm the manager of Hillcrest, and I worked with Mary Ann and city staff to have this meeting. I want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak our concerns and our thoughts regarding this program. We thought it would be more of a discussion with council. Hopefully we can do that. It doesn't sound like the format today will be that way, but we have several points that we'd like to make regarding an inspection program. We hope you consider those. And with that, let me start off. I've spoken both at the subcommittee and at the last Meadville City Council meeting regarding inflation, the high cost of inflation, high cost of gas, the high cost of food. We're all feeling the effects of inflation. It is at a 40-year high. It's at 9%. It went down to 8%. The Federal Reserve targets 2% as their target. There's no hope inside that we'll get back to 2% inflation. Your timing for additional costs to our tenants is terrible. It couldn't come at a worse time in the last 40 years. The COVID money has disappeared. There's no more COVID relief money. Our tenants are struggling with the high cost to make ends meet, and we want you to consider not implementing this program just because of our tenants having a tough time making ends meet in this high inflation environment. So we ask your consideration of that as you move forward. Thank you.
Jeff Leary.
I'll just stand here. I'm just making
I'm
this
sorry.
quick.
I'm sorry. You need to come over so
Okay.
Armstrong can hear what you're saying. Thanks,
No,
Doug.
no, I'm ready.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Leary. I have a few units here in town, and we try to keep our rents reasonable, of course. My point is, we've talked about all these stuff on inspection for the landlord. Is there any requirements of the tenant? You know, I can show you lots of pictures of where tenants have left our units. Are there any requirements of tenants when they come in? When we did this in 2013 with Tooney, he told us that tenants were required. The landlord placed a working smoke detector in the unit. The tenant was required to maintain the battery in it, maintain it in working order. If there was a problem with it, they were advised to tell the landlord. Sometimes they take it down, it's not working, it's beeping, so forth, and stuff like that. We've gone into units, extension cords misused with problems, fire hazards. And my question is there any requirement in this, if this does fly, is there any requirement in it that tenants are going to be required to meet any standard? We all know that landlords are going to be required to meet a standard, but are there tenants? Will tenants be cited at all, or only landlords for tenant problems?
So under the program, as proposed, the landlord would be responsible for making sure that everything is complied with. So if it's a matter of bad housekeeping, if it's a matter of removing
Right.
smoke detectors and everything like that, it would go to the landlord to make sure that those are rectified, because the landlord is the one that basically has the control of the capacity to get control of the property. That's typically how it's handled in other places as well. So it would be on them, I suppose, to clean up, of
Right,
course,
it's just
but
like
we
pest
would say landlord.
infestation.
I'm sorry?
Just like with pest infestation down the street here, you know, everybody's on to the management, but I haven't seen any landlords bring in bed bugs. Tenants bring in bed bugs. You can talk to Ehrlich or any of these other extermination people. They are hitchhikers. Bed bugs are hitchhikers. They come in with tenants. We've seen this. But the landlord, of course, is responsible for getting rid of them at quite a cost. We had that happen to us. You know, so we've only looked at one side of the coin here.
So the tenants would, of course, they're going to play a role in this, of course, with bed bugs and any infestation, tenants have to play a role in getting it taken care of. But from an administrative standpoint, the letter will go to the landlord and say, this is what's defective, this is what needs to get taken care of. However the landlord decides to do that, that will be up to the landlord.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jody Hill.
My partner and I own one unit here in Meadville. It's a duplex, and we keep it very well maintained. And we always look for people who will take care of the property for us. I guess my question is, I went on the Meadville website and I read some of the code, like 1721 is, in particular, is where I was. And there was a number of, .12, whatever it was. There are a lot of pieces of code that already enforce, or hold landlords' feet to the fire as far as providing a safe environment for a tenant. You can't have a hole in the floor, you can't have a leaking roof, your plumbing has to work. All of those things are already in the code. So why are we reinventing the wheel? Why is this code not being enforced? If someone calls and says, hey, my roof is leaking and my landlord won't do anything about it, boom, okay? You've got fines, you've got actions you can take to enforce this type of thing. So I guess my question is, why are we putting an extra expense burden on the landlord, which in most cases is going to be passed to the tenant, when we already have code in place that is a matter of enforcing? That's I guess what has me curious.
Sure, and that's a matter of, as I said before, we do have that in place, we do enforce it on a complaint basis. This would basically make it a systemic way of making sure that all of the units are up to code. I think, and we've heard this, and I'll say this, I've been here 15 years. We'll oftentimes hear from tenants who, right or wrong, for whatever reason, have a conception that if they make a call, then they're going to be, the landlords are going to kick them out or whatever. And a lot of them are indeed scared. They are scared to call because they think they could be thrown out or whatever. Most landlords aren't going to do that. But for whatever reason, they're afraid to talk to the landlords. We often talk to people who say, we say, well, have you talked to the landlord? And they haven't even talked to the landlord yet. Well, they want to talk to the landlord and they'll get taken care of. So yes, the standards are already in place, and they've been in place for quite some time. But it's just a matter of making sure that we have a systematic way of making sure that all the rentals are up to where they need to be, because a lot of ours, or many units are just not up to code right now, and this would provide a way to get there. I think that's the best way to explain it.
Yeah, and I guess one of my concerns as a property owner in Meadville is blight. We have a lot of blight, even on the commercial side. The old Meadville Cinemas right on Park Avenue is a prime example of blight smack dab in the middle of our downtown. The property that sits on Chestnut between Park Avenue and Market Street that has brown paper in the window and dead and dying pigeons in the window. And I keep saying, why isn't code stepping in and making them take care of this, making this go away? I do, I feel for the tenants in town, especially, ones that recently had their rents raised like 30+%. In my opinion, that just isn't right. We don't do that on any of our properties that we own. We keep them maintained, so I guess I'm more for the code being enforced when there is a complaint made. And I mean, I don't know if there's some way you can make a tenant feel comfortable in calling in a complaint so that they don't feel like there's going to be retribution if they report that, there's a hole in their floor and they've fallen through it and that type of thing. But that's just my questions and comments, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Little.
I guess I had a couple questions. One being, how do you know who has rentals and what house is a rental and not a rental? The other would be Titusville implemented, just recently the same program. And I know that they probably brought in 1/3 of the money that they were expecting to bring in. And the current staff is not able to keep up with the demand of this. So how is that going to be managed, moving forward?
Well, for the first question, we'll basically do an analysis to say, okay, where do the tax bills go? Is it to the same address or not? And we'll get an awful lot of them that way. Second, we know a lot of them. We just know where they are, between the fire department, the police department, between me, we just know where a lot of them are. But to your point, there's probably going to be, there's quite a few that we just don't know about, and we will continue to find. I mean, you'll see that in many programs, where years down the road, they'll realize, oh my gosh, this is a rental, we need to get this thing taken care of. So I think that might be what you're getting at there, is how you're going to get all of them. We may not get them all the first year.
Right.
You know, and because they do change, sometimes they go from rental to owner-occupied and back again. So it's a good point, but mainly it's going to be a GIS analysis of tax bills, essentially, is how we're going to start.
Right. I guess the other part of that would be is, what if I just said, they're all my relatives? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know that we've gotten to the point of having affidavits or other kind of certifications that you swear to, or looking at driver's license. I don't know that we can do driver's licenses. I'm looking at our solicitor here intentionally. That's a good question, as far as how do you document that they're relatives. It's something we'll definitely have to formulate and flesh out as we go forward.
Okay.
Your other question, as far as capacity,
Yeah.
we've identified a couple of people who should be able to manage that. We've calculated the fee based on certain assumptions as far as registration time, enforcement time, et cetera. We feel pretty comfortable about that, but again, as soon as when we get out there, if it finds out that, oh my gosh, we need more people, okay, well, we'll make sure that we get it taken care of. We are in the midst of vetting a software program that will help make things hopefully much quicker, much simpler, much easier. A lot of automatic entry that will help.
Right. But if you need more people, the fee goes up then.
Well, potentially. Now, we're not going to make money on this. It's going to
I
be a cost.
understand, but-
That the $38 will not, to be clear, that's not going to cover the cost. That's a fair point. I can't say for sure which way that would go. I don't anticipate increasing that. I think we have a pretty good handle on how long it's going to take. We've worked with other communities. We've talked with them quite a bit and say, okay, once you got this down, we'll be more efficient as we go forward. So it should get, again, more efficient, so we should have less time as we move forward. So there may be a little bit increased cost, a little bit slower as we ramp it up. But I would not advocate for changing the fee if we can do anything at all to help it.
Karen Kress?
Process from I want to second for fear fight now. So there's an old adage that a man's home is his castle. And while that doesn't give anyone the right to do a crime in their home, it does suggest that everyone has the right to privacy. I believe that you actually must realize this because privately owned homes aren't included in your program. Perhaps I buy my toilet paper in bulk at Costco. I don't want you to know that because I think that might open me up for the next disaster we have is somebody's going to break into my home if they need the toilet paper. I really feel that people should have the right to privacy in their home, and I think this program is a problem. You are claiming that the program is purely for health and safety of our city, but you haven't included individual houses and owner-occupied houses. Vic and I, real recently, but within the last 10 years, we bought a privately owned single-family home that had no electric box in it. The electric came straight from the street into the house. No fuse box, no breakers, nothing. Also, it had a cracked element in the furnace. That house was an accident waiting to happen. And that was a single-family house that was owned by an elderly man who probably built the house 75 years before that. And it never had anybody turn the power off and on and check those things, etc. But you know that homeowners do not want their privacy invaded. And they would knock your doors down if you tried to do that. So the first step you're taking for more government and control is targeting people who rent. People who have no choice but to let you into their homes. My tenants are not second-class citizens. They have the right to privacy in their homes as anyone. When they are looking for a house to rent, they use discretion. Unlike going into a restaurant to eat, they can try the faucets, they can flush the toilets, they can go into the basement and look at the furnace and the hot water tank. They can see that the outside is neatly maintained. Heck, you could even bring a white glove with you and do that if that's your standard. Most of my units are inhabited by people who work. The smaller percentage of my tenants are elderly and retired or disabled. I can confidently say that none of my tenants would want to take a day off work to accommodate an inspector invading their privacy. Nor would any of them want to spend any of their valuable time to get prepared for an inspection. I've never met a landlord, I know I'm over, but I've sat in this room many times when many people are, I just have a tiny bit to go. I have never met a landlord who doesn't have a terrible story to tell you about the condition of people leave their houses in. But that's part of the job that we take on as investors. One characteristic is someone who rents is that you realize that people do not live alike, and everyone has the right, once again, to live in the way that they do. Of course, we want them to live clean, and we can say that. And most of them think they do. But, that's my job. We are still in the midst of a pandemic. We have been living with the fact that contagious virus has killed over 1 million people. I still don't like to shake hands. I still like to maintain a safe distance. And I'm probably one of the least scared people because I believe in personal freedoms. I feel that there are many people in this city who do not want to take the risk of someone entering their homes, and rightly so. Have you considered what you're going to do when you walk into a house and the tenant is living in squalor? And they won't clean it up? You just said they're responsible for cleaning it up. What if they don't? Are they going to be homeless? Is that what you want them to do?
Okay, Karen, can you wrap it up real quick? Sure. Thanks.
You need investors in the city. If you don't have investors, there goes housing, and there goes a large portion of your population for the renters. And they are not second-class citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Rogers.
My name's Bob Rogers, and we have several properties in the city of Meadville. And I took a little survey of all the properties we have and all the renters. And the first question they said is, how much is it going to cost me? How much are we going to have to raise the rent? And I said, I have no idea. It depends on what goes down with the inspection. It could be anywhere from nothing to 25%. The next thing they said is, how are you going to protect my safety? Because everybody talks about safety here. And every one of them brought up, every single person brought the same question up. What about COVID? What about smallpox? What about polio? What about monkeypox? And every single one of them said the same thing, that when the person comes in to inspect that property, they want to see a license that said they had both their shots, both the booster shots, and the one that's coming up, presented to them. The next thing they said is, we want to see a current COVID test before they ever enter the house. And it's a good safety question, because 357 people in Crawford County have died from COVID. Now, from what I've gathered, in the last 10 years, nobody has died from a structural fire caused by any safety problems in any of the rental units. I don't know of anybody that's gotten hurt with a broken plate light, or a broken light, or a window that doesn't open properly. Nobody. So we're going to only strict just to safety. Now, I personally think the person ought to come in, they ought to have booties on, and they probably ought to look like Ghostbusters when they come in with a full hazmat suit. Because how are you going to protect the elderly, the people that can't get vaccinated? How are you going to protect the women that have small children? How are you gonna do this? Where's your guarantee that safety? They don't want people in their house without me there. I don't wanna be there either. But are they gonna be bonded, the people that come in, so they can't steal something if I'm not there? Where's your protocol on this? Nobody said anything about safety, what you're gonna do. All you do is say the safety of what the homeowners don't do. You don't say anything about the safety of what your inspection program is gonna do to guarantee nobody gets sick. And then the upswing in the viruses stuff is continuing, it's not going down. So just please remember, the safety of the people in these rentals is the utmost important thing you can do. Thank you.
Jennifer Breyer.
I just wanted to go over, I'm Jennifer Breyer, I just wanted to go over the, more of like the cost side of what this program is going to cost our tenants. We all know that increased operational costs will equal increased rent. So right now, we're faced with, we were at 1.2% with inflation, we're at 9.1 from a year and a half ago. So how does the inflation impact the tenants? Fuel has doubled. Property owners use fuel to mow the properties, to get to and from the properties, to manage them for maintenance. Our labor rates are up 5.5%, benefits are up 5.2%. Materials and supplies have drastically increased, well over the inflation rate. We are now having to buy in bulk because there's a severe supply chain shortage. Our insurance is up 5%. Some garbage, well, all garbage companies, other than the city of Meadville right now, we do have dumpsters other than city garbage. They're charging a fuel surcharge to the bills. Some I've seen as high as $200 surcharge. Contracted services are all up, meaning that if the property owner cannot perform that work, him or herself, it's going to cost significantly more. And then the city property taxes and stormwater management fee. The city is negative $1 million. Like ultimately, you're definitely going to raise our taxes again, which means we have to add that fee too. So now on top of all of those, the inflation rates, we have to add the cost for this program. So we're going to have the annual city inspection fee, which Gary just said the $38 is not going to cover that program. So that's probably going to, you have to recover it. There's no extra money. We have the staff time involved in each apartment visit. So beyond your fees, we have fees. So we have to pay a staff member to go walk through the apartment. We have to pay a staff member to coordinate appointments with tenants and the city. And then any registration fees or reinspection fees once again. So if the tenant doesn't comply with a cleanly apartment and you have to come back, we then have to do this whole circle again. And then finally, any repair costs. So depending on what you guys are asking for, this can add up significantly. We broke the cost down to try and get some kind of estimate as to what we're going to have to start trying to recover. And we were looking at a basic between $18 and $65 per month per tenant on top of this rent increase to cover the inflation rates. So meaning that typical tenants in the city are going to see, if they live in the city of Meadville, anywhere between a $63 increase and a $128 increase per month, based on ranging that between $500 rents and $700 rents, and depending on what the unit needs.
Okay, Jennifer, I'm sorry, your time's up. You want to wrap up? With
Yeah, I'm almost done.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys want to have like a legitimate, you guys should be, yeah. All right, due to the economic, current economic, well, I'm not going to go that, so we did that. Rent control, I want to go over that because several members have said that they've suggested rent control. Rent control diverts investment in the community. It's simple math. If the property owner does not have sufficient income, they're not going to maintain the property and the property is going to deteriorate. It's negligent really for city council to consider implementing a rental inspection program without proper due diligence. And you're misleading the residents by saying it's only going to cost $3 a month when you've not accounted for the cost of this implementation and the compliance with it. So that again, the cost compliance has to be a part of this process. It's not possible to have a full understanding of the financial impact by excluding the businesses that can provide you with the data to reach an educated decision. A decision that's going to cost the people that you're saying that you're trying to help. So I'm just mostly concerned about how much we're going to have to raise rents to cover this program. And if you're saying that you're going to charge $38 a year, and if you pass this 2 years in a row, you're not going to re-inspect for 4 years, but you're still going to charge us a fee every year, right? So we're only going to pay the fee once every 4 years?
It would be cut in half because you have fewer inspections, correct?
But there's still a lot of other costs associated with this program that you guys aren't accounting for. So beyond your time, we have time, and expenses. So those expenses will ultimately get passed on, and everybody knows it's a business like anything else. So it will raise rents. So when you do that, just be aware you are raising the rent. Oh, and the other thing I had a question on were the people that don't live the cleanest, like the people that rent from Chaps. They're going to be probably displaced because it's going to be really hard to maintain your list and have them comply. So you're probably going to cause some homelessness with the program.
Can I interject? I was a little disappointed. You gave the Home and Towers people almost 20 minutes to speak at the last council meeting. We're only going to be 3, 4, or 5 minutes. I think you should allow us a chance to speak all of our thoughts.
Or at least at the council meetings, they give 5 minutes whenever you sign. That would go everybody too.
Who's next?
So just be fair.
Nancy Angelo Bittner.
I'm not hearing that that's going to increase. I'm going to talk real fast because I want to get it all in. If you didn't have landlords, Meadville would be a city of 6,000 people. We're also a community with thousands of homeless people and hundreds of dilapidated structures awaiting the wrecking ball. Landlords pay the taxes, which support your fire and police departments. Their taxes pay for snow plowing and streetlights. Professional landlords buy building supplies. They employ tradespeople and maintenance workers whose wages generate tax revenues. And yet, when council decided to implement a rental inspection bureaucracy, none of the professional landlords were asked for their input and expertise. The alleged purpose behind rental inspections is safety. But if safety is indeed the justification, then every structure in the city of Meadville should be subject to inspection. Having checked with the fire department for the number of complaints, it was found that legitimate tenant complaints were very few. In fact, most of the violations were actually caused by the tenants. I know many of the landlords in this room, and I am certain that each one of them would address any maintenance requests from their tenants. Why do we need a new inspection plan when there is a system already in place? Call the fire department or lodge a complaint with our property inspectors. If the inspection mantra is safety, why would an owner living next to another owner want to feel safe? It is discrimination to separate landlord-owned properties from owner-occupied properties. With all due respect, Mayor, I believe your property was cited not too long ago. Many landlords are already subject to outside inspections. To impose another fee is to cause an increase in rents. Others conduct regular inspections on their own, so a city program would be duplicative and costly to the tenants. Remember, all means all. So Allegheny College would have to pay a full fee per dorm room. Rental inspection fees will harm tenants because rents will be increased to cover the added cost. Rental inspections will cause a cascade effect in housing. As tenants are priced out of their existing units, they will move down a tier, and those folks at the lowest tier will find themselves homeless. Aggressive enforcement in the name of safety will have a similar effect. If a unit is deemed uninhabitable, the tenant will be forced to move out until repairs are completed, if ever. Again, the tenant finds himself on the street, and once the repairs are completed, rents will increase, and the end result will still be homelessness. Add to this, the timing could be the worst possible timing with the cost of increases in rentals and the electric and the gas and everything. So now landlords may be forced to raise their rents up to $75 per month to cover the additional property taxes, I know, and rental inspection costs. So here it is. Increased costs to landlords translate into higher rent for tenants. Higher rents cause a cascade effect in housing and ultimately lead to increased homelessness. By helping the people you purport to help, the city would be increasing homelessness and enlarging the supply of dilapidated housing. Thank you.
Wendy?
Gary? Is there one?
Who made me follow Nancy? I just want to know. Thank you for having us, council members. Hopefully mine will stay within the time frame. But with everything that's been said, I've been a resident for almost 30 and a landlord almost 25. So, and I'm in the real estate profession, so I think I have a unique perspective. I've helped many people, not only in this room, but I've helped a lot of people throughout the 2+ decades to invest in this community, to maintain in this community, and I believe to help it become a better place in the end. The challenge for all of us, we want health, we want safety, but the way we want to get there is not the same. You've heard a lot of examples. I mean, today I just printed off from our lovely state government, right? Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. Gary would probably know a gentleman by the name of Shapiro is the signature here on this. Not trying to be funny, folks. This is 23+ pages of already existing means by which people can, through their government, right, compile complaints, consumer complaints, civil rights complaints, utility complaints. I just have to tell you here real quickly, right? Don't have my highlighter. Under applying rent, page 3, okay? Inspection, interesting topic. If you have found a prospective place to rent, inspect the unit thoroughly. Consider the following. I'm going to read a couple. Are the kitchen appliances in working order? Are bathrooms in working order? Is there a window or working vent system? Are there adequate water pressures? Are the drips, leaks, and evidence of water damage? Is there central air conditioning and does it work? All right, goes on and on. I mean, ultimately it's this, and I think you've heard it. It shouldn't be discriminatory. That word gets used a lot, and it's a shame, right? I mean, it's a very sensitive topic for all of us. But the reality is this, it is a business, okay? We don't need other layers to really add on that. Back in '09, I had a little bit more hair, and I was here during those discussions, and I remember this, and it was pretty succinct. You buy the property, you improve the property, you insure the property, and if something goes wrong, you're responsible for the property. Okay? I don't believe anybody is forced to go into the relationship of landlord-tenant. Our government, right, has lots of resources, lots of things that are going to be utilized, and I believe everybody has the opportunity. No one is discriminated against using that mechanism, and I believe all of you hopefully would agree with that. I think, again, what are we really talking about? If it's truly safety, Nancy and everybody else in here, then let's go across the board, folks. Don't look at my tenant. I was a tenant. I'm now a landlord. Respectfully, I've never had anybody scared to talk to me, but the reality is this. It is a relationship that I trust in. The people that have been my tenants, I would hope that they saw me as somebody that was fair, somebody that was honest, and genuinely wanted to have them living in safe conditions. And I've invested in this community. I will continue to invest in this community. But I really think we need to go about this in a different way. Thank you.
Lynn Mccumber?
Good job.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Mccumber. I'm here on behalf of CHAPS, where I serve as Executive Director, and also as a private citizen and a 46-year resident of Meadville. CHAPS presently owns rental units, so we serve as a landlord, and we also support many individuals who access housing. We truly value the partnerships we have with many landlords in our community. Over the years, many landlords have offered stable, affordable, safe housing to hundreds of individuals that we serve. Many have had long-term success and tenure in landlords' units and keep their units very clean. There have also certainly been challenging tenants, as there are across the board, which takes much patience and work on part of the landlord. As representing CHAPS, we are also a landlord renting to about 24 individuals, and we have also had those very challenging experiences and know that it's kind of the challenging price that we pay to be in that business. We also really value the health and safety of the adults and the children that we serve. While the majority of properties we see are safe for occupancy, there are at times serious health and safety concerns. This is from a very small minority of landlords. Our hope is that the city will establish a simple and basic inspection process that will not put undue hardship on landlords, but ensure the safety of our adults, elderly, and children of our community. I understand that there is concern with the fee, but I believe that a $4 per month fee, whether paid by the property owner or the tenant, is a price worth paying for the safety of our renters in our community. Thanks.
Alicia?
Good evening, Council. I want to thank you for the opportunity to voice some of my concerns to you. My concerns revolve around what the program entails and the implementation method that you're suggesting. The recurring wording we keep hearing is the health and safety of all. We hear that this program would look for the basic health and safety violations within rental units. Why then has it been stated that this program would start with basic things and we could ramp it up from there and begin to look at aesthetic concerns? If it's for basic safety concerns, maybe we should also address the 15% of fire calls from January 2009 to January 2022 that went to owner-occupied units. If we exempt those units, you're essentially stating that the individual who rents the other unit doesn't matter to you. If the owner's unit catches fire, the tenant they have could be impacted by fire, smoke, or water damage to their unit. The same can actually be said of single-family homes. Improper use of extension cords is pretty common, as well as some families using space heaters in their homes thinking they can reduce their home energy costs. This, as many know, is a fire safety hazard. If a single-family home goes up in flames, it can damage adjacent properties as well. How about the health and safety of my tenants from the concerns that a single-family home can pose? Missing smoke alarms, missing address numbers, broken windows, electrical hazards, etc. are not just rental unit issues. These can also be found in single-family dwellings. There's also some question as to whether or not public housing would be included. Given the unsafe and unsanitary conditions that the Holland Towers residents have faced, it would be advisable to also inspect there as well. I don't think we can stop there though. If we're in the business of registering rental properties to ensure we collect per capita tax from everyone who resides within the city, let's go ahead and register the college housing as well. Those students are able to vote here, they reside here for what, 9 months of the year? They need to pay their share here too. If this is about collecting per capita taxes because the county did away with per capita tax assessors, let's be sure you collect all the taxes you can then. If this is really about the health and safety for all of Meadville public housing and owner-occupied units should not be excluded. In fact, no property, single family or otherwise, should be exempt if that is the true purpose here.
Thank you.
Monica Hargengrader.
So I'm semi-new to actually being my own landlord, but I've been a property manager under my parents' management for some time now. Got quite a few years of experience in this field, and honestly, this is the first time I've really paid attention to the rental inspection program. I kind of just, not recently, I guess I should say within the last couple of years. But I just have a couple concerns. So, as everyone keeps bringing up, you continue to state that this is for the safety of everybody, but not every place is being inspected. We aren't really being told the full cost of everything either. How can you continue to state that this is to help the tenants whenever this actually stands to not only raise their costs, but invade their privacy, possibly incur them fines, and then also other additional undesirable consequences?
Would this program possibly be more helpful if we use those resources instead into already existing programs? The housing subsidy or local organizations that are trying to give rental assistance to everyone and, or people that need it. Those programs also have inspections within themselves. I know whenever we previously had worked with CHAPS, our properties had been inspected before a tenant were to move in, and CHAPS would supply the rental assistance. The properties were inspected for their safety. So again, with what everyone else has already been saying, these programs are already in existence. I already covered that. Ultimately, we need to ask this question: why are you incurring more costs to the city? If we look at the program that's already in place in Erie, how far in debt are they? Because landlords aren't paying, tenants aren't following through with various things that they're supposed to. Ultimately, the program is not doing great up there. It was also brought up tonight that Titusville's program is not doing so great either. What makes you think that Meadville's program would do better? I just really don't understand why we would even want to, first off, duplicate programs that are already in place, and second off, incur further costs not only to the city itself, but to the tenants, again, that you continue to state that you're trying to help. Just really don't see how this is going to be helpful for them.
Ron Irwin?
Hello, my name's Ron Irwin. Thank you for this opportunity. Since my background is in safety, my concern is with cross-contamination. For those not familiar with cross-contamination, simply put, it's moving contaminants from one location to another. This is why Meadville Area Water Authority, along with other water companies, require backflow preventers on incoming water lines. This is to prevent contaminants from potentially leaving a person's home or business and contaminating the entire water system. Other types of contaminants may include bloodborne pathogens and viruses. These can attach to someone's clothes and contaminate other locations. But my real concern is bed bugs, cockroaches, and fleas. What guarantee are you going to give that your inspector isn't going to carry bed bugs, cockroaches, and/or fleas from one apartment to another? What liability will Meadville be taking on knowing cross-contamination is a real possibility? After all, Meadville Housing Authority has been the only landlord in the news due to infestation of bed bugs. For anyone not knowing how bed bugs, cockroaches, and fleas get from place to place, they crawl or attach themselves to a person or personal belongings. Fleas are possibly worse because they jump and are hard to spot on dark items. Therefore, you have no clue that you may be transporting nuisance bugs or viruses from location to location. Will the city of Meadville be able to get insurance to protect landlords from the possible infestations due to cross-contamination, or is this something else that you will be expecting landlords to pay and pass on to the tenants? At the end of the day, is an inspection program really going to help tenants or hurt them? Thank you.
Ron Irwin was the last person that was signed up to speak. So that was shorter than I thought.
Can we hear your thoughts on it, on everything?
That's not what the meeting was, but
There will be absolutely opportunities in the future as we move forward. We're going to, Brenna took down the comments and everything, so between the subcommittee, I think the
Probably
subcommittee.
the subcommittee level as well as council.
The subcommittee and as well as council, so the subcommittee will take the comments, of course, today and take a look at them, I believe, they meet next
Could the
week.
subcommittee meetings be moved to a more convenient time slot so working people can attend? Or don't you guys want the people that really could take and contribute, don't you want them there?
We can talk to the committee about that, the subcommittee about that, so.
They're at the time that they are,
And that-
mainly for staff. Is there any, like, input from the Erie's, are there points to speak to? or about
Ed
it?
was mainly here for if there were questions that would be proposed, that, specifically who would be able to answer them.
There was a question specific about Erie and how much it's been costing them? Could that be answered tonight since he's here?
I'm not sure that Ed's the one to answer that. We wanted Andy Zimmerman to be here. He's the code enforcement officer for Erie. He would be a better idea. He'd be able to tell you specifically from that standpoint. Ed's really more in charge of just the inspection, so I wouldn't know that.
Sure. I have one more question that I missed. So it was my understanding that the $38 is a registration fee to register your rental unit. What is the inspection fee?
That includes the inspection.
That includes, okay.
We tried not to get into the weeds of too many different.
What about the
fees,
license
fees,
fee?
You know, late fees and everything else that goes in. We didn't want to get into that. We tried.
How do you get a license? Doesn't that cost money?
It's included in that. Yeah, we incorporated all the fees, you know, overhead, everything we best we could into that fee.
That is an annual fee. Annual fee per unit.
Yes.
Every year is 38. Yes,
Unless you get through the 2 inspections that you pass, and then it'll be every 4 years instead of every 2 years.
Those, if you've already passed, there's no $38 for that unit.
For that year.
For that year.
It would, if you passed every month, every time you get 2 pass inspections over the 2 inspections, then it goes to every 4 years. So it cuts the fee in half.
So if you go 22, you pass, 23, you pass, 24, you don't pay again until 2028. Correct?
I
just said, say it started this year, you passed 22, you passed 23. So that means you're saying
22 and 24, you pass, and then you wouldn't go until 28. It's 4 years.
Every 2 year inspection.
Every 2 years.
You pay every year, inspected every 2 years. If you pass 2 inspections, so that would be across 4 years.
Correct.
Then you would go to every 4 years inspection, but you still have to pay a fee. You'd pay half the fee?
Essentially.
Essentially. We're paying for.
My question.
We're not getting anything, what are we paying for?
I got one question. Why are you starting this program when COVID is around? Because there's a lot of cities that have suspended their inspection programs, a lot. Okay? Why are you starting it up right now? With the pandemic and everything.
For sure. It's been a priority of council for the year is to put the program together.
Yeah, but why haven't you suspended until everything is in better shape for the health of the community?
That could be a question for council when we get to the point of actually implementing. It's still, again, it's just a proposed program at the moment, so it's not like it's not going to be tomorrow, so it's still a matter of there's still discussion to be had, and that could be a valid question that we could pose.
Other communities have programs where they are inspected empty, like right before they rent. Have you considered that possibility?
You would not be inspected if it's vacant, so yes, that's exactly what would happen, is when you go to actually rent it out, then you would have it inspected, make sure it passes, and then you could rent it at that point. So yes, vacant would not be subject to registration license, because it's not a rental at that point. So exactly, if it's vacant, it doesn't fall into the program.
But Karen, you meant in between tenants, right?
Right.
Take a look at what it looks like.
So if it passes without, and then...
It was really a matter of trying to keep it as simple as possible, is really what the goal here, when the committee was putting it together, to say, you know, every other year might be the simplest, as opposed to, if you have a tenant and they leave after 6 months, do we have to go back in again? You know, for example, it might be more excessive if we did it between tenants. It may not, but we try to keep it as simple as possible, so everyone knows what to expect. You can budget for it, essentially. I mean, that's really what the idea was behind doing it that way. Not to say that we couldn't look at doing that. I mean, Ren will take that down as a suggestion. But I'm not sure that it helps from a consistency standpoint. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's what the goal was.
Did you say that the fees were not covered in the program cost?
Not likely cover entirely, no. At least not for the startup. There's going to be a lot of work at the beginning to document, you know, put that registration part of it together, but longer term, hopefully.
Where did that shortfall come from? Increased city tax license?
I mean, it would have to come from somewhere. I couldn't tell you specifically how that would be budgeted, but it's not intended to make money, you know, and we're not supposed to make money on it. So we're doing our best at figuring out exactly what it will cost. But of course, at this point, without having it in place, it's a guess.
I do not understand how a house is exempt, that's owner occupied. That's not unconstitutional, something like this. Because you can have tenant, 2 owner occupied on both sides, and you're not inspecting those, but if they got bed bugs, they come over into your yard, you have to do all of them, or none of them. That's it. All or none. And you're not considering all or none. You're only considering some, not all of them. Why?
How do you handle the tenants that say, no, you're not coming in? What's the plan with that?
Please.
That's one I think I could jump through to Ed. If a tenant, I mean, we would essentially coordinate, do you essentially coordinate with the landlord for inspections?
That's what's done currently, yes. Coordinate with the landlord, tenant has a valid reason for not allowing inspection or not requesting inspection at a certain time, get rescheduled at a later date. But then the ultimate responsibility goes back on the landlord.
Yeah.
They have a possessory
To, Gary, have you talked to, have you met with any of the inspectors up in Erie or Titusville? Because I know down in Titusville, they're having a real issue. Tenants are refusing entry. Landlords are paying tenants to refuse entry. The bad landlords, they don't want, I'm not saying they are. They're paying.
No, I'm not questioning, I'm just.
So anyway, so they don't want inspected. We'll give them $100 to deny entry, you know? So I just wondered if you talked to these guys to hear, you know, kind of what we're all hearing is, like, this program doesn't work well. Erie is behind in their, they had a huge shortfall. Our city has no money. Like, where's this coming from? You basically just said, like, it's not, the $38 isn't gonna cover it. Where's it gonna come from? The only way to recover any money is to raise everybody in the city's taxes. So private homeowners now are gonna have to pick up the bill for this program in addition to the tenants. So, like, those are things that people need to know, like, that we're gonna have a shortfall, which means your taxes are gonna go up. You have no way to generate any revenue. The city has no way to generate any money other than increased property taxes or fees. I mean, that's the only way. But you need to go talk to these towns because they obviously have problems with implementation.
We've talked extensively with Sagertown, Greenville, Sharon.
I think
The
the
other ones,
landlords
Erie
are-
was another one that we talked to, and yeah, we've talked to Andy quite a bit up in Erie. There's going to be hiccups along the way. There's going to be people that don't want to work with this. Just with any regulation, I mean, it's the same. It happens all the time.
The people
don't
you're
want
trying to
work with
catch are
this.
gonna buck that system. It's not really these people in here. It's gonna be the out-of-town landlords, out-of-state landlords. And they're gonna do things like I just said. They're gonna refuse entry.
So we'll just have to follow up with enforcement as provided in the ordinance to ensure we
But
get.
that all costs money and the city doesn't have any
Sure.
money. So every resident that owns a home in the city of Meadville is being forced to pay more. Like, my parents live on a retirement and social security. They can't have their property taxes increased again and again and again to pay for programs that, you know, they shouldn't have to pay for or be responsible for. If this is a tenant-based program, then those fees, instead of $38, and raise them to what it's gonna cost, $65. That way we can tell the tenants, like, ultimately, this program isn't 38, it's 65, and it has to get passed on. We shouldn't shove it over to every senior citizen in the city, because it's not gonna be covered.
I choose to
Any other
live, I
questions?
choose to
Yeah,
live in the
Gary,
city of Meadville because I know there is fire and policemen, and I know I'm safe, and I know my taxes are higher than in other communities outlying Meadville where I could live, but I think it's worth it, and I think it's pretty much the same parallel that you're making a choice to spend some money to make sure people are safe. So I guess it's just a choice of, is it worth money? We do spend money on things, and we all spend money on a lot of things in our life, and is it worth the
I
money?
think the question is more is why is it considered landlord and tenant occupied units are unsafe, but yet you could have rodent infestation and everything else in owner occupied. You have cockroaches, and it doesn't matter what, you could have extension cords, and it doesn't matter how unsafe those units are, they are fine and will not be inspected because they don't care about the health and safety of those people, or else it's not about health and safety at all.
Are there any other questions or concerns or comments?
Yeah, Gary, you and I have worked together for inspection in Sagertown, and I'm sure you're aware the number of units that when it started was a lot more than the number of units now. They've got, a lot of them got tore down, a lot of them have disappeared. So if you think you're getting more housing, you're gonna get less. Sagertown did. Check the numbers of units.
And what about rent to own? Are they gonna be inspected? What if those people don't pay the water bill? What if they don't pay the taxes? What's gonna happen with that?
It would, I mean, again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this necessarily, but it would be the owner of record would be the one that we would talk to. You know, if
So
there's
those are gonna have to be
AOAs
inspected too?
If there's AOAs or something like that where you're not the owner, then it would be inspected, yeah. And I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to get into like case by case because, you know.
Well, nobody's asked now, I just wanna know what you're gonna do with that.
It'd be the owner of record who would be the one that would contact. It's really the only consistent way that we can do it.
The Titus Hall program does have a big section on tenant, in that it's both the landlord, if he or she is in fault, and the tenant is also fined if they haven't taken care of the property. That's one of the questions we're asking. We don't see anything about the tenant in this proposal. And if you're looking at others around in other communities, they do have tenant provisions.
I mean, we could take a look at that and follow up.
Please do.
And then Gary, is this gonna be the same where you send out letters to the owners and they have to fill out the paperwork regarding who lives there? So it's not like Sagertown that way?
It doesn't talk about it doesn't gather information on tenants, no. Yes, Andy.
Is there a provision or requirement that if an inspector goes in and observes anything other than what they're in there for, is there affirmative duty for that inspector to report to authorities? I'm sorry?
Like what in the road?
Well, if privacy, if you see contraband, if you see something that would otherwise be in your private space, right? There's an expectation of privacy. Will there be any provision that's going to require that inspector to report to somebody other than the body?
You're an inspector in the area. Do you report what you see with the tenant? Doing wrong?
Outside of our inspection.
Okay.
No.
That's not contemplated then.
So is that a no, Gary? You're saying no, or you don't know?
I'm saying, I haven't heard that that's been contemplated so far with what I've heard of.
I guess expand on that, so just like.
Any other questions or concerns or thoughts? I mean, we'll definitely follow up on some of the other concerns that were brought up.
Could you clarify when the next subcommittee meeting, we requested it be in the evening, so we can all attend after work?
It's been advertised for next Wednesday at noon. That advertisement has already been issued.
Would you consider future meetings in the evening so we can all attend? I mean, in the middle of the day, it's difficult for us to, you know, we're working on a project, it's difficult to leave, so please consider moving it to the evening so we can all participate.
That would be a decision of the subcommittee, and I think they could probably take that up and discuss at some point. I don't want to speak for the committee, but. Mark.
Hi, Gary. Hey, I think it is understated, the issue that will arise from tenants who do not live the way an inspector would. I have a good relationship with Lynn here and Chaps, and I house many of their people, but there are some that's who they're going to be, or they're going to be homeless. You can't babysit them, you can't be there to fix their day for them. It is what it is. It's not just Chaps, it's others. And I'm not trying to point out Chaps, but some mentally are simply not able to live up to the standards of a certain inspector. And that could be a huge issue. It could lead the whole, I just think it's understated.
Ed, do you have any thoughts on housekeeping that you've seen?
In 2007, that exact comment came up when Andy Zimmer and I were in the process of establishing the rental program for the city of Erie. And it was brought up by a number of people that had housing shelters, for fear of the shelters becoming overwhelmed. It never happened. Never transpired, never heard a comment about it.
But if you look at the list, like, Gary, can you pull back up the requirements? Because part of it's like cleaning and, we can't make the tenants do this. So I'm just like,
Housekeeping, so I mean, when we talk about housekeeping, Ed, just general, you don't have filth, you don't have, there's not dog feces around, I mean, is that essentially what you're looking, what you've seen in the past and what your inspectors look like, just examples of things that might want to be corrected?
Sure. What you really need to understand, that list of items is derived from an international minimum standard codes that are designed for health, life safety, and habitability. If you go below that minimum standard, you're pretty bad. Our inspectors really don't find, outside of a few remote cases where the facility is so bad that it is filthy, rodent infested, and things like that. And when they do, they turn that over to the city's code enforcement bureau. They deal with it. Our inspectors are mainly looking at smoke detector placement, smoke detectors, lack of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, electrical issues, HVAC issues, mechanical issues, and things like that.
yeah, but like we have tenants take them down. I had somebody at Shire, they're smoking, they take them down. Like you can't babysit everybody, and they're in there when they move in, and then they, you've been around.
And so they get corrected, and then
We put them up and take them back down.
And it passes, and then we move
But
on. I understand, it's that we're not in there every day, of course.
We incurred the second inspection fee, we have to come back.
Not for the first time.
Is
You have
it-
to come back a second time, that's the additional fee.
Well, yeah, if you're
First
coming
fee.
back for the smoke detector, right?
No, you have one inspection, if you fail, then you have 30 days. The second one, you don't pay for the second one, that one's included in that. If you have to come back a third time,
Is it per unit,
Yeah,
per
that's what my
landlord?
next
Like,
question.
per unit.
so the reinspection would be per unit,
That's
would be, the first one coming back would be free.
That's
And then what if we can prove to you that we had working smoke detectors installed before the tenant moved in? They certified this by signing a contract agreeing that they were there and that they were gonna maintain them, and then the inspector comes in and they're not there. I show you the certificate, the tenant signed it, they were there, they worked. They said they were gonna maintain them, but they didn't. That's again not on me. The walls must be in good, clean, and sanitary condition. I can show you pictures of all of my rentals before a tenant moves in. They're just fine before they moved in. So again, I'm not gonna go in and clean the apartments. The tenant, I
the tenant's
can't.
there.
Right, yeah, well, the tenant's there. I mean, between, we do a thorough clean. I can't have a broken outlet cover, but they can leave me a trash can of poop, which definitely happened to me.
Jugs of pee?
Yes, so the jugs of pee.
How
That was
about
great.
taking on the brand new carpet we put in one bedroom and turned it into a cat litter box?
Yes.
The whole bedroom.
So,
Now my question is, you got carbon monoxide detectors, so your inspector comes in and gives a clean bill of health, so we don't have our furnace guy come in and inspect a furnace. They remove the batteries out of the carbon monoxide detectors, the family perishes because of carbon monoxide. Are you liable because your inspector inspected the HVAC system and said it passed inspection? So now who's liable for that death? Because the tenants removed the carbon monoxide detectors, the inspector said the HVAC system was fine, but it wasn't. Who is liable?
I can't answer, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not gonna try to answer that one.
Are you
I'm not gonna
opening
try to-
yourself up for a lawsuit? Potentially massive lawsuit because of what you just put on that board right there.
Well, if it's validated that it's working when it's inspected and a tenant tampers with it, then that's.
No,
But
he's saying like
the
the
furnace was
furnace
bad.
itself, if he's inspecting the furnace to make sure the furnace is bad, it's
the carbon monoxide just alerts the people, so if they've taken it down, but the inspector said, oh yeah, the furnace is good, who's on the
No,
hook
you're
for
wrong.
it?
We had a tenant, took the batteries out of their smoke alarms and their carbon for their gaming equipment, had a fire, the smoke alarms didn't work, and the landlord was still responsible for the fire damage. Yeah, that's a difficult.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the death, the family, like, extended family sues for wrongful death, something like that.
I don't want to get into too many particular cases.
Just-
I understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, but I don't know that it opens anybody up for liability, at least doesn't open the city up for liability.
I don't
The
think it does,
deepest
but-
We'll go and look. We'll go and, of course, we'll look. and-
Anybody can sue anybody, right?
Right, the deepest pockets is where they're gonna go.
Sure, so is there any other concerns or
I just want to make one more
contributions?
comment about like Marvin did about the more challenged people in town. You know how they don't live to these standards. So my concern is that landlords, if they think they're going to get hit with all of these costs, are not going to rent to them. Because they're going to go in, they're going to clean them up, they're going to charge more in rent, they're going to get rid of the lower income units, and you're going to displace them. I would be really concerned about that if I were you guys, about how many of those units you're gonna take off the rules and make them non-available units, because landlords are now worried about, like, if I'm gonna have to do all of these things, then, and we don't have very many of those units, but I mean, people do. So if they're gonna invest all this money, then they're gonna probably not rent those units out. If they're gonna invest that, they're gonna want more money, and then that's gonna make them not have housing in Meadville. So I would look at that.
I just have to say, I'm really struggling with the generalizations that are happening here. I can tell you that there are many people that have a lot of money, that keep very dirty homes, and there are people that are very poor that keep very dirty homes. It's across the board. I'm all for accountability, though. If somebody is living in filth, they should be evicted. And unfortunately, we often encourage landlords to evict. It's like, it's up to the landlord. And it's a terrible, cumbersome, costly process to evict. And it is, again, the risk of being in this business. But then they should be evicted, and that's when people learn to be accountable and they choose to change their ways, or they live with those consequences of being homeless, and eventually, hopefully, they'll change their ways. But
then you're looking at it from a safety standpoint here. I think more, one of the things the landlord's looking at also is, even if you talk about $4, which is ridiculous, we know, but let's say it's $10 or whatever, the people that got displaced up on Pine Street, I got 20 calls as soon as that happened, and I know every other landlord in this room got calls, okay? Those people are renting from, instead of 1,700, they're going to places that are 12. That's what I was trying to get across. Then the people that are paying 12 are going down to the 8. So the people that we've rented to for 20 or 25 years at Hillcrest, that we care a great deal about and take good care of, are complaining about even a $5 increase. So guess what? I can fill my units. Any day of the week I can fill. I have no empties, okay? But what's going to happen to that poor schmuck that can't pay that other $5 a month? They're the ones that are going to be out the street. The very people that you're saying you want to help. Those are the people we need to look out for. So you'll have a beautiful 36 unit up there that will never be finished. Someday it'll probably be Section 8, okay? But what good does that do for the people of the city of Meadville? So it's not just safety, it's even $4, call it $4, call it whatever. But I'm sure you know, as well as everybody in this room, somebody who can't afford another $5.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Any other comments or anything specific to the
I got one
program
question to ask.
that we can talk about?
What are
Yeah.
you gonna do about the historical houses in Meadville, and there's a lot of them, and we happen to own one of them? Are you gonna take and force us to make the things so they don't look historic anymore? That's one of the charms of the city, like your window program. Okay, you have these old windows that are huge. They have storm windows on the outside. We've done thermal imaging on the whole house. They meet well within all the standards of heat loss. But what if the inspector comes in and says, I don't like that?
He's not gonna do that.
Okay, how do we know that?
Because
Where's our guarantee
you'll
that
go
we know
in,
that?
And again, it's like, it's a broken window. It's not, it doesn't have to do with efficiency. It's not like a building code requirement where if you're building new, then it requires certain efficiency things. This is really just a maintenance thing. It's just a health and safety. So if it's a broken window, and Ed, please correct me if I'm wrong. But if it's just a broken window, you replace it. If it's a single pane
What do you
window, you
consider-
replace it with a single pane.
What do you consider broken windows? Like you got double hung windows, you don't want the top to work, you consider the window broke?
If the what?
If the top section, you make it so it doesn't open, and the bottom section opens perfectly fine, is the window broke?
I don't, that wouldn't be to me.
The window's
If I
not
were doing
broke?
an inspection.
Just the glass and stuff, right?
Right.
Windows operable for ventilation, if needed.
It what?
Windows operable for ventilation, if the room or space requires it.
For ventilation.
Yeah.
So here's my question. So if this goes into place and we pass your inspection, and then when they move out,
Yeah.
now I've upgraded, so I put in 4 new storm windows, and I put in a new door, and I did this and that, and then you've inspected, it all passes, we have all our pictures. They move out, and I now have 2 broken windows again and a broken door, and they won't pay for the repairs, though they obviously broke them. How does that work? Do I not pass inspection until I fix those again?
Well,
Who's
I
paying
guess
to
it begs
fix the damages that are incurred after I passed inspection 6 months prior?
That would be the landlord's responsibility as the owner of the property. But
Right?
I'm
And
not
the
saying,
tenant won't pay those damages.
that's a landlord-tenant issue. I mean, as far as who you rent to, and I completely understand the relationship, trust me. But that would be a landlord-tenant issue, and I think you would probably want to fix that glass anyway, whether we wanted you to, the city wanted you to or not, you're gonna fix it anyway.
Which is why this is
So-
a null point. Which
so-
is why putting the inspection program in place is not, it doesn't make sense. We're doing it anyway. We make the places livable.
Sure.
They're safe when people move in.
So, but to answer your question, if they were still broken when the next inspection time came up, then that's when we would say you need to get the windows fixed.
So it's
I
not
think that
safe
was the
until you
question.
inspect it again. It can be unsafe for 2 years. You're talking in
I mean, we-
circles and it's silly. It's a silly idea.
Any other questions
And
or
it's not going to help
concerns?
anybody across the board.
I have some light reading for you, Tracy.
He's got a whole bunch of numbers you can call.
You good?
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Second? Sure, do we need it? Yeah, okay. This meeting's adjourned.